Okay, so instead of the occasional one or even two movie reviews that I normally bring you in a day, this time I have four. Yeah, that's right. But two of those star Mark Wahlberg. So I decided I didn't really want to make four individual videos, so I thought with this one, I'll review both Pain and Gain and Two Guns at the same time in the same video, so I don't have to make four videos, and then, I'll just do short reviews of each, and then I'll decide which one's better and which one's more worth seeing. This is my personal opinion. If you preferred Pain and Gain or Two Guns, whatever one you preferred, let me know. But this is what I think, so let's get on with it. And first of all, I'm going to review Two Guns. So Two Guns, of course, stars Mark Wahlberg with his partner Denzel Washington. Now Mark Wahlberg is, I think, a good actor. He's been in bad movies, sure. He's been in, Broken City came out earlier this year and it wasn't great. It was kind of enjoyable, but I'd only really give that a 2.5. But so he's now in Two Guns, which is the sort of movie that he is good in, sort of action movie with little bits of comedy. It's not solely a comedy movie, but it's pretty funny in parts, and Mark Wahlberg is definitely the funniest character in this movie. But of course Denzel Washington has that sort of cool factor, so the movie really works, and the two actors have really great chemistry together. They've never been in a movie together, but this one, they should do more movies together because they are honestly great in this movie, and they really work as partners, and it's a really believable partnership. But the movie has a few flaws, so I'm going to go through it. So basically the plot is that Mark Wahlberg and Denzel Washington are two sort of partners working together, and they rob a bank, and across the bank is a diner. So of course they do this really clever setup where they blow up the diner, they put the police in the cells before they can rob the bank so that they don't have to get the police on them, and then they rob the bank. Now that is a really clever way of doing it, and I really liked how they did it in the movie. So yeah. But the movie starts twisting around a bit, and it turns out Denzel Washington is in the DEA, and then Mark, he's sort of, how do you say it? He sort of betrays Mark Wahlberg in a way, and he was going to kill Mark Wahlberg for stealing the money, but then Mark Wahlberg reveals that he's part of the Navy, and he's stealing the money for, the Navy, so he goes to kill Denzel Washington, and then they sort of set each other up, but then they realise that these two different groups, they're after them now, so that they have to work together again, and that is when the movie really starts to kick in. That is when it gets really good, because when they work together again, they're really good together, and I think they should partner up in more movies, and I really like them together. So Mark Wahlberg was absolutely hilarious. Denzel Washington was extremely cool. I really liked his character. He has two sort of different personalities, which I really liked, and the action scenes are spectacular. I really liked them. So yeah, there wasn't what I didn't like. There was some flaws because as you go through it, there's no real sort of villain in the movie. There's villainous characters, and then you're like, okay, so he's the villain and the money belongs to him. That's why, they're going after Mark Wahlberg and Denzel Washington. Then it turns out there's a different group of people, and you're like, what the hell's going on here? Who's after the money? Who does the money belong to? And, does it even belong to Mark Wahlberg and Denzel Washington? It could do, even though they stole the money. Who does the money actually belong to? So you've got the Navy going after these guys, you've got the DEA going after these guys, you've got these drug mob boss guys going after the two guys, and you're like, what? And when the final shootout comes, there's so many people getting shot at and killed. You're like, okay, so who are we rooting for? I know we're rooting for the two main guys, but who do we want to these guys seem like assholes because there's so many people after them, but they're really, you do really root for them. I don't mean that you shouldn't root for them, because by the end of it you're rooting for them. You're like, I want these guys to have the money, and then the money sort of, it's sort of one of those movies where the money doesn't even go to anyone, and you're like, okay, that was kind of pointless seeing these two groups of people. But the action is really enjoyable. It's a really enjoyable film. If you want a good action film with some funny scenes that you can just sit back and enjoy and not have to switch your brain on, apart from parts you do, because it does get confusing, which is weird. But if you just want a decent action movie where you can just sit back and relax, go and see Two Guns. You won't be disappointed. It is enjoyable. And, I enjoyed it anyway. So I'm going to give Two Guns a 3.5, which I don't like doing. I don't like the 0.5 bit. It's I try and avoid it if I can, but I feel that a 3 is too low, but 4 seems kind of high for this movie, so I'm going 3.5. So yeah, there's my review for Two Guns, and now I'm going to review Pain and Gain, the next Mark Wahlberg movie. So Pain and Gain is again Mark Wahlberg and Dwayne Johnson. This is like his 7th movie this year. Like, he's been in Fast and Furious. He was in G.I. Joe Retaliation, Snitch. He's been in like loads of movies. You know, he's been in more movies than Mark Wahlberg, and Mark Wahlberg's been in like thousands of movies in the past few years, maybe. But yeah, Pain and Gain is a story. It's a true story, which was really weird. It's the story of like Mark Wahlberg, Anthony Mackie, who played Tupac in Notorious, and then we have Dwayne Johnson, who are these 3 bodybuilder guys, and they want their life, you know, to be like other people's. They want to be rich, so they kidnap this guy and like take all his money and everything. And yeah, but the movie's based on a true story, and they tried to add comedy into this, which I didn't really like. I enjoyed the movie, and it was very enjoyable, and I think, you know, if you want to sit back and see some cool explosions, even though there's not that many explosions really, but if you want to see some cool action, and, you know, go and see it. But Michael Bay again proves that he cannot do comedy, because this movie was marketed as a comedy. People are saying, oh, it's a black comedy. Yeah, it's a black comedy, but it's not funny. I mean, Rebel Wilson's in this, who played Fat Amy in the recent Pitch Perfect, and everyone thinks she's hilarious. Like, everything she says is apparently hilarious. Yeah, she's funny, but she has to have her lines written properly, because when she's in this movie, she's making all these penis jokes. It's just so out of place. Like, if I were one of the families that, like, was the family of one of these guys that got kidnapped, I'd be like, I'm so offended by the way they put penis jokes into my family's movie when he was tortured and beaten and nearly killed and all his money was taken. Yeah, that's what I would have been offended too. So yeah, the comedy doesn't work in this movie, but when this movie is working, it's working. Like, but what I don't get is, you know, there's narration by Mark Wahlberg. You're like, okay, Mark Wahlberg's the main character, of course, he'll be narrating the movie. And then Dwayne Johnson starts narrating, and then Anthony Mackie starts narrating, and then this Russian chick who was like hooked up with Mark Wahlberg and then hooks up with Dwayne Johnson later, she starts narrating, and you're like, how many people are going to narrate this movie? Come on. Like, everyone's narrating, and you're like, okay, so the movie's about everyone's thoughts. I think it would have been so much better if it was just Mark Wahlberg's narration and everyone else was just in it. But again, the chemistry between Mark Wahlberg and Dwayne Johnson is great, as it was with Denzel Washington in the previous movie. Not the previous... I'm talking about Two Guns, okay? But yeah, so the chemistry between them is again great. And I know Pain and Gain came out a long time in the USA. Yeah, it has only just... Well, it's not even out in the UK. I saw it on previews. So yeah, I don't see why they released it so late then... Because I know that in America they got it in like June, which is crazy. But the movie's enjoyable. It got some pretty bad reception from critics, but also some pretty good reception, so I didn't know what to expect, but I enjoyed it. I mean, yeah, they shouldn't have made it into a slapstick sort of comedy movie, which didn't work at all. But when the action's working, you know, it works. So yeah, I did enjoy it. I think it's an enjoyable time, and you will like it if you go and see it, maybe, depending on whether you're a victim of this guy's family. Yeah, so yeah, it's an enjoyable film, and I enjoyed it. So I'm going to give it a 3 out of 5, which means the winner is, of course... But I didn't really get the title of Two Guns. So yeah, they don't even fire 2 guns at the same time. Maybe Denzel Washington like holds these 2 guns at the same time, but he never fires them. He's just like, yeah, I'm holding 2 guns. That's why the movie's called Two Guns. And then you got Mark Wahlberg and Denzel Washington firing at the same time, which is cool because they're using 2 guns, but they're not using 2 guns between each other. So yeah, anyway, that's an enjoyable movie. Pain and Gain's an enjoyable movie, but I'll say that Two Guns is a smidge better than Pain and Gain, and it's more enjoyable, and the action is just great. So if you're deciding on which Mark Wahlberg movie to see this weekend, I would recommend Two Guns. But so yeah, thank you for watching my video. I know it was a pretty short one, but I just got Saints Row 4, and I have to review 2 other movies, so you know, I had to make it kind of short, right? So yeah, thank you for watching, and goodbye.